Hey guys, welcome back with another romantasy book recap. Today we are talking about Alchemy and Ashes. If you are like me and you go a long time in between books in a series, I like to watch recaps or read recaps just to kind of refresh my brain before I read a sequel, because otherwise I don't remember anything. I actually read this one as an advanced reader copy and I just happen to really love it. And I also have a really fun interview with the author coming out soon, so stay tuned, hit that subscribe button if you are interested in watching that. Or if you are watching this as an old video, you can probably just go to my page and find it there. But let's jump in. Our book starts out with our main character Sylvie. She is headed to Pharos, which is the capital of Solara, with her sister Adria and her guardian Laris and this emissary to Netheria. His name is Typhon. They are headed to Pharos upon invitation by the king Ronan. There is going to be this months-long feast of the gods in Pharos. Sylvie is from Netheria and she is of this noble family. Her sister Adria is the head of the house of Varen. So as the head, Adria has this plan to kill King Ronan and kind of attacking the town and declaring war upon Solara. The reason for this goes back into their history. Netheria's greatest export is the ash of this phoenix cypress tree. The alchemists within Solara had developed this method of using the ash to turn lead into gold. Years ago, Solara had been really demanding too much ash from the people of Netheria. It was kind of leaving them overworked and hungry and weak. And a neighboring group of people called the Orsa kind of took advantage of that and attacked them. So finally, Netheria kind of had enough and they declared war against Solara in hopes of gaining their independence. At the time of this, Sylvie was too young to go to war, but her brother Seth, Adria, they went to war, and then her mother and father went to war, and her mother and father were killed in the war, and specifically her father was killed at the hands of King Ronan. So Seth, Adria, and Sylvie are kind of all out for revenge against Ronan because he killed their father. After their father was killed, Adria took over and continued on the war, but ultimately ended up surrendering to King Ronan. And then after the surrender, Ronan gave some Netherian lands to the Orsa people. There's a lot of contention between the Orsa and the Netherian people. In this Alchemy and Ashes world, people are born into different schools of magic. Basically, they have these religious texts called the Codex, and it kind of puts an order to the schools of magic, like that some are more powerful or more important than others. Those at the top of the totem pole are those with light magic, and those at the bottom are those with shadow magic. So for example, our main character Sylvie, she is shadowborn, and when she lies and is kind of sneaky, it makes her shadows more powerful. Adria and Seth are both fireborn, and then King Ronan, I think, is one of two lightborn in the kingdom. So they're like very rare, and they're like the most powerful of the magic houses. On their way to this festival, Adria and Laris inform Sylvie that they want her to kind of seduce Ronan to get information out of him and make him a little bit more unsuspecting of their plan. Because of Ronan's light power, he has like several different abilities. One of those is that he has the ability to read emotions. He also has the ability to heal and kind of like wield light for fighting, and he has some other things that kind of come out along the way. Because of his ability to read emotions, they know that they need to be kind of cautious around Ronan to not tip him off that they plan to kill him. When they get to the capital, Sylvie's trying to play really cool, and he can kind of like read that she's like attracted to him, so that she kind of like doesn't really like him and doesn't really trust him. And he figures it's because like, yeah, he killed her dad. Still, despite the fact that he killed her dad, she is like, oh wow, he is really cute, and they kind of flirt and stuff a little bit, which she hates herself for. So later on, when Sylvie should be getting ready for dinner, she finds this secret passageway out of the castle into this market. And when she gets out, she meets this guy who is kind of like covered in scars, and they kind of hit it off, and he shows her around the market. He calls himself Saraann. He tells her because of his line of work of importing these rare goods that he hires shadowborns as spies. One of his shadowborn spies has recently gone missing. So Sylvie is like, oh, I'll look out for her. It's kind of like the first time that there's something fishy going on in the kingdom. When Sylvie and Saraann part, he winks at her and she realizes, oh my gosh, that looks exactly like Ronan, and she begins to suspect that Ronan and Saraann are the same person somehow. And Sylvie begins to befriend the head of the Alchemist Guild, which is kind of like the group of scientists in the kingdom. She's one of the rare few with light magic as well, and her name is Zara. And she kind of offhandedly mentions to Sylvie that there's been some issues with the Alchemist Guild because there is certain magic that they are not allowed to do. So later on, Sylvie and Adria are practicing their sword fighting for an upcoming sword trial that is going on, and Ronan comes over and asks if he can like help Sylvie, and they're kind of fighting and flirting and stuff like that. Sylvie gets really bold and asks him why his guard, who was standing right there, why he uses him, because he is Orson. Sylvie can only see what the Orsa did to her people. She can't really see the other way around, like the bad things that the Netherians did to the Orson people. And so Ronan tells her that Taryn, the name of the guard, is one of his close friends. He tells Sylvie that him and his father found Taryn all alone, abandoned, after Nefarians had like really kind of brutally attacked and tortured Taryn's family and left him abandoned. And so once she's able to talk to Taryn, she's able to kind of like put some of her prejudice aside and kind of like see things from his perspective and the Orson people and like how they were mistreated, just like her people were mistreated. And because she's on this role of being bold, she also confronts Ronan about how her people in Netheria are starving. After Netheria had surrendered to Ronan, he kind of promised them, hey, as long as you keep the ash coming into Solara, I'm going to keep you fed. I'm going to keep grain being sent to your people. Because after the Orsa helped Solara in the war, Solara gave the plains where Netheria grew all their crops to the Orsa people. So it kind of left them without the ability to grow their own food. But the shipments that Ronan keeps sending to Netheria are water damage or being stolen by thieves or things like that. And so the people of Netheria are literally starving, and Sylvie is like, why aren't you doing anything about this? And he acts like he has no idea that it's going on. Meanwhile, Adrias and Laris, they have secured a navy from Felix March. He is kind of like this pirate of the Inez Islands, and he has promised them his ships in exchange for future Solaran gold production if they win the war. But they learn that Laris needs to go to the Inez Islands to talk to his mother to kind of like help secure more assistance and stuff like that, so he leaves, which is disappointing for Sylvie because he's kind of like her one ally. She's kind of always at odds with her sister Adria, but Laris is kind of like always on her side and like on her team and not so critical of her like her sister Adria is. So Sylvie sneaks out to the market again and comes across Soren again, and he tells her that there is another one of his Shadowborn spies missing. Her name is Marcella. And Soren says he has a lead on this, and Sylvie says she wants to go and find her. And so they go to the kind of like this warehouse over by a port to try to find Marcella. People loading these really big crates on and off ships and stuff like that into this warehouse, and when they investigate what is in the crates, it's these really powerful ingredients for alchemy, which they figure is probably illegal because only like people in the Alchemist Guild can kind of like deal with these kind of ingredients. And when they find out who is in charge of this situation, it is Marcella herself. So they get into a fight with Marcella and her guards. And so while Sylvie is fighting with Marcella, she finds this new ability within herself with her shadows that she's kind of like able to extend them out of her body, like as extensions, like almost like arms or legs, to be able to fight. And while they're in this little fight, Sylvie had used a fake name with Soren, had told her that her name was like Hazel or something like that. And he calls her Sylvie, so she realizes, okay, like, you know my real name. You have to be Ronan. After this fight, he's able to lift this mask he was able to create with his light magic and, like, admits, like, yes, I'm Ronan. And he calls for his royal guards to come arrest Marcella and her bad guys. And he admits to Sylvie that he had to do this himself and not call in the guards because he feels like there's kind of like a mole within his guards or like his close group of people. Even though Sylvie knows that her goal is to like ultimately kill Ronan or like get information, be a traitor to him, they are getting closer, and she kind of learns some interesting things about him, like that instead of her shadows weakening his light like most shadows do, hers kind of like amplify his light and make them more powerful. Also starts to realize that Ronan has lost a lot of faith in the gods and does not necessarily believe in the sacred texts of the Codex. And this is kind of ironic because he's technically like the leader of their national religion as the God King. And everyone in Solara holds him to be the like reincarnation of a god, but he doesn't really believe in the gods that much all himself. So because Sylvie kind of feels herself getting closer to Ronan, she kind of like distances herself a bit. Sylvie is really good at archery, and so she's in this archery trial for one of like the games that's going on for the festival, and she's in the final against these other two people. As they're drawing their arrows and release, Sylvie hits a bullseye, and when she turns, she sees that the man next to her has fallen. He has an arrow in his ear, and there's a woman who was up against them as well, and she's like running away. She realizes like, oh, this was done for a distraction of something else. So she looks up to the royal box where Ronan is sitting watching the trial, and she sees that there is this Shadowborn guy who is hiding in his own shadows. And only Shadowborn people can see through other people's shadows. No one in the box can see that there's this Shadowborn guy there who's creeping up on Ronan and about to kill him. Sylvie sees him and like knocks another arrow and releases her arrow and shoots this guy down. And all the guards see what Sylvie did and think that she was trying to kill Ronan, so they attack her and take her down to the dungeons. And once she's down there, one of Ronan's best friends, her name is Quinn, she had previously been really mean to Sylvie. She comes down and she's like, I know what you did. Like, I know you were trying to save Ronan. And Quinn gets Sylvie out of the dungeon and takes her back up to Ronan. And Ronan knows that she was trying to save him. And he admits to Sylvie, like, I didn't feel that guy's emotions and intentions like I normally would. Like, that's how he normally is able to ward off any assassins, is because he feels people's emotions nearby him that they intend to kill him. And he admits to Sylvie that his powers have just overall been weakening, and he's not sure quite why. There's not really any pattern to it. And this is when Sylvie begins to realize, like, I don't actually want Ronan dead. I definitely can't kill him. I don't want anyone else to kill him too, otherwise I wouldn't have saved his life just then. But she doesn't feel like she can admit that to anyone, especially Adria, because that would make her a traitor not only to her sister, who's the head of the house of her homeland, but also to the people of Netheria, who she feels like are counting on her. After all this, they're not really able to get any helpful information out of Marcella. Ronan, who again puts on his mask as Soren, and Sylvie go out into the market together, try to work together to find these Shadowborns that are missing. Talking to this guy who says that he saw something. He claims that he saw the original missing girl, her name is Vesper, being led into this alleyway and through this doorway by this man who was wearing these brown robes, like those that are in the Alchemist Guild. But when Ronan and Sylvie go to investigate this doorway and this alleyway, it's like completely empty. There's like not a sign that anyone has ever been there. And then later on, Sylvie and Ronan kind of go back to the same fight about the gold production and the grain. Basically, Ronan tells her, like, gold is basically our only export that we have, so we really don't have any choice but to keep making it. But that he looked into the grain shipments that Netheria should be receiving. He's like, there shouldn't be anyone who should be going hungry right now. No one from Netheria has reported that there's been any issues with the grain. Sylvie begins to suspect that maybe there's something else going on, that like maybe Adria isn't telling her. Finally, Sylvie and Ronan have this like really serious heart-to-heart where like Ronan is like, I'm really, really into you, but like, I need to know that you are not lying to me and that you're like actually serious about me. And he's like, I know you're kind of like pretending in the beginning, but like, I'm not pretending about you. And like, he can't go on with like this flirting if like Sylvie is still at all pretending with him. And she realizes that Ronan is being truthful with her, like about all the things that he's been telling her, like the grain shipments and all these things that she once held true in her mind, and that maybe like her family is the one that's kind of like manipulating and lying to her. She still can't reveal the plot that Adria has to kill Ronan, because that would mark her as a traitor and get her killed. And she's like, well, she's still my family. I can't betray her like that, even though I really like this guy. So she decides, okay, I'm gonna go talk to like Laris and Adria and see if I can like get them to call off the whole plan so that like everyone wins here, you know, like we can get the people of Netheria fed again and stuff like that, like without any bloodshed. And she kind of feels like, okay, I need to know what Laris has to say about this grain situation, because he's my best bud, and like if he knew about this, then like I'm really gonna feel completely manipulated about it. But they do still have like a really steamy makeout, and they realize they can kind of like share this line of emotions between each other. And then right after this, Sylvie sees the alchemist from Netheria, his name is Hermes. She sees him kind of like sneaking through the palace, and so she goes and follows him with one of the palace guards. Her name is Stella. And he goes into the alley and door that Sylvie and Ronan have previously investigated and not found anything. And so when she goes and follows him, again, like it's empty and it looks like there's been no one there. And she's like, okay, where did he go? Like I saw him go in through here. And when Sylvie gets back to her room, she sees her sister Adria is like super drunk, and she's like, okay, actually this is like a great time for me to try to get some information out of her and see if Adria has been lying to me this whole time. And she is able to get Adria to admit like that she has been the one that's been messing with the grain shipments by hiring bandits to steal it, or like letting water into storage, so that she could blame it all on Ronan and starve the people that she's supposed to be serving and make them more willing to rise up against Ronan. The next day they're supposed to do this like big hunt, and they find this griffin that they all are in these like hunting parties for, that they're like, okay, we're gonna take down the griffin. One part that kind of stood out to me that I feel like will maybe play into book 2 was Ronan's cousin Lucas. He kind of like approaches Sylvie during this hunting party, and he tells her like, hey, I'm watching you, like I know everyone thinks that you tried to save Ronan when you shot that arrow up into the box, but like I know you were trying to kill him. It isn't true. She was trying to save Ronan, but she's like, okay, like I'm gonna kind of stay away from you. You're making me feel weird. The others in their hunting party give up on trying to find this griffin. And right after they leave, Ronan and Taryn and Sylvie, they're the remaining ones. They find the griffin. Sylvie expresses like, oh my gosh, don't kill this griffin. Like this is so stupid. And Ronan is actually able to feel the griffin's emotions, which he normally can't do with animals. And he feels that it is like curious about them and that it's good, and so they're actually like able to approach the griffin and eventually like get on it and ride it. So Sylvie and Ronan take the griffin to these cliffs, and it kind of leads them to have this deep conversation, specifically for Sylvie to ask Ronan, like, hey, can you tell me about like when you killed my father? Their two armies had kind of been at a stalemate, and so Sylvie's father had approached Ronan and said, hey, let's have a duel, me and you, and whoever wins this. Ronan had also been like really fantasizing about killing Sylvie's father because he had killed his father. When Ronan beats Sylvie's father to his knees, he realizes like, I can't finish this, like I can't kill this man. And after it's clear that like Ronan like cannot finish the job, Taryn, his friend and guard, steps in and actually is the one who kills Sylvie's father and his general who was accompanying him. Although Ronan had defeated Sylvie's father, his mercy was kind of like a forfeit in the rules of a duel, and cost him the technical victory. So the meaning of that is that Adria is actually the one that has a claim to the throne. No one else knows about this lie other than Ronan and Taryn because they were the only ones there for the duel. On learning this, Sylvie is like, I know that Adria technically has the claim to the throne, but like she cannot be queen. Like she's unhinged, you know? Sylvie convinces Ronan like, hey, I need you to double the grain shipment. And she doesn't tell her in this part, but like it's in a plan of like maybe him doing this will undermine Seth and Adria's plan. Lyris finally returns and Sylvie is able to tell him about what Adria and Seth have been doing, and he admits that like he didn't know and he's gonna like try to find a way to stop things and like maybe put an end to this war that's brewing. Sylvie kind of sees this as a chance of like, okay, I can like be with Ronan because like the war is gonna stop. And so she surprises him at this opera of like, okay, like I'm in with you, and so get this good spicy scene. And when they leave to go have some privacy back at the castle, someone pulls Ronan aside to ask him a question before they get in the carriage. And while Ronan is off having this conversation, Taryn and Sylvie are together like waiting for him, and they are both attacked and Sylvie is kidnapped. And Sylvie awakens in this room on a table, completely paralyzed, and her blood is like being drained out of her body into this bag by none other than Zara. As it turns out, the alchemist had kind of been trying to find an alternative to the Phoenix cypress ash that was like turning lead into gold for export. Zara believed that blood might be the answer, but that was where Ronan really drew the line on like what the alchemist could be researching, because he was like, I'm not sacrificing people for you to get blood for gold, like that's not ethical. But then Zara discovered, oh, I can use shadowborn blood to suppress light magic. So the alchemist had been sourcing shadowborn blood through Marcella, but then Ronan and Sylvie had kind of like shut down that operation, not knowing that it was like being fed to the alchemist. Basically, Zara was using some kind of process with shadowborn blood and making these candles, and it was suppressing light magic. And she was putting the candles all throughout the castle, and it was suppressing Ronan's magic. And that's why he wasn't able to feel the intentions of his almost assassin at the archery trial. Been this big plot of like she wanted Ronan to be taken out and killed, so that the alchemists could research whatever they wanted and do whatever magic they wanted without Ronan telling them what they could and couldn't do and interfering. At this point, the book switches to Ronan's POV because Sylvie is like knocked out, feels Sylvie's energy shift and sees that she's been kidnapped. He immediately goes to that alleyway that they had previously been investigating, knowing like this is where Sylvie is. I just need to find this like secret passageway basically. And they're able to find it, even though he knows like this is like a trap. And he finds Sylvie laying on the table with like her blood being drained out. And he's like trying to find a way to get the blood back into her, while Zara has been like hiding under the table, and she like slices Ronan's ankle and kind of takes him down. Plus there's the lightborn magic candle shining in the room, so it's like suppressing all of his light magic. Right before Zara plans to kill Ronan, she tells him like, yeah, you and Sylvie are shadow bound. But we don't really get any more explanation in the book of what exactly that means, so I'm sure we'll get more of an explanation in book 2. Sylvie is just kind of waking up enough from her paralysis that she's able to use her shadows to snuff out the candle in the room and pin Quinn down so that Ronan can kill her. And then Quinn and Taryn come and they find the missing shadowborn people that were being guarded by the alchemists in this like secret area. So later on there's this big masquerade ball, and Adria confronts Sylvie and tells her like not to be like their mother. As it turns out, their mother had been like a shadowborn spy with the goal to kill Ronan years ago, but ended up trying to spare his life. But Ronan's father, King Aurelian, had killed her instead once he found out her plot. Sylvie learns that Ronan had gained all these scars in this like attempt to end Ronan's life that her mother had orchestrated. Once he opens up to her about all this, Sylvie finally feels open enough that she's like, I really like this guy. I have to tell him like this plot that's been going on to like end his life, because like I don't want that, and like I don't want this war. So Ronan convenes his war council, and Sylvie kind of like tells them everything that she knows, and they decide to confine Adria in her quarters along with Sylvie, under the pretense that like threats have been made against them, so that Adria doesn't like make any sudden movements and suspect that they know like what she's plotting, and so that they can start preparing their armies and navy. Sylvie returns to her quarters with Adria and tries to pretend like, I don't know why this is going on. Like, I'm so mad they've got us confined. But after a couple of days, Adria like really suspects like, okay, you betrayed us. And she attacks Sylvie, but then Ronan comes in and he sends Adria to the dungeons. And like the next day or something like that, they have this big festival of night, and Solara is attacked. One of the heirs to another house, his name was Titus, he kidnaps Sylvie and takes her to the throne room where Adria is waiting for them. And Adria attacks Sylvie with her firepower so that Ronan will like feel her emotion and like kind of come running for her, so that they can ambush him. And so when Ronan comes running in with Quinn and Stella, his guards, Adria kills Stella with her flame, and Titus throws some kind of like this like smoking poison on the floor basically, which like knocks out Quinn and Ronan. Adria tells Sylvie like, yeah, Laris tried to like stop this whole thing, but I had to remind him like he swore an oath to me, not you. So they kind of had both been lying to Sylvie about their plans recently, which is why Sylvie didn't know that this attack was going to happen as early as it did. She thought it was going to be weeks from now. But then they hear guards coming, and so Adria and Laris, they make a run for it and get out. So that night they kind of like fight off everyone in the city, but they know like there's still this war that's like brewing on the horizon. There are troops that are marching in, like there are ships out off the coast that are headed their way. Quinn is still knocked out, and they've got like all these healers working on her, hoping that they can get this like poison out of her system. But how Sylvie's POV in the book ends is that they're in their room recovering from this battle, and Sylvie gets up in the middle of the night to go get some water, and she hears a click of the door. And then all of a sudden, like, she gets knocked out and, like, kidnapped again. And we don't know who it was or anything like that. And then in the epilogue, it switches to Ronan's POV again. And Ronan is, like, up in the morning. He's like, okay, where's Sylvie? Like, she's not here. And someone shows him, like, Sylvie's ring that they found near these, like, secret gates that take them out of the city. So the book ends with Ronan feeling that Sylvie's emotions are beginning to, like, kind of come back online. And he can feel like what direction they're in. And so him and Taryn are getting on Mira, the griffin from earlier that they had like now domesticated or something. And they are getting on the griffin and they are heading off in search for Sylvie. I loved this book. I feel like I had been in a slump with romantasy books lately. Just like nothing was like really quite doing it for me. It just had a lot of tropes that I really love. The book felt really refreshing in breaking this cycle of romantasy books I was reading of having like the shadow daddy and like bat boy, like mailman character, because Ronan was really more of like a golden retriever energy. And I really, really liked that because like, yeah, like we want like a nice guy, not like a grumpy, mean guy, right? So as of right now, I'm not sure when book 2 is coming out. Hopefully we won't have to wait too long, but I suspect book 2 is going to be about Ronan trying to find Sylvie, and then probably something about the brewing war and maybe shutting that down or going to war or something like that. I do believe that this book is just a duet, but who knows, maybe there will be more books to come. I do have a couple of things that I suspect. I think that there might be something going on between Quinn and Adria. There was a lot of like angry tension between them, but there was one specific scene with Adria, Quinn, and Sylvie where Sylvie was like, is there something like chemistry like actually going on with you guys? Like I know you guys hate each other, but like, is there actually something going on? Then obviously there's the big question of like who exactly took Sylvie. I'm not exactly sure. I am suspecting it's maybe either the cousin or Taryn, because we didn't really get any resolution on Ronan's cousin. Like after he accused Sylvie, it has to be someone close to Ronan who is able to get into their room and unlock their room. I don't know. I know we're not supposed to have prejudice against Taryn, but he doesn't particularly like Sylvie and he doesn't really trust her. So I don't really know. I hope you guys liked this recap. I hope you found it helpful. If there's anything I forgot or any predictions you have for book 2, let me know in the comments. I love doing these recaps for romantasy books that I enjoy and love. Feel free to like this video and hit subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!